Tonight, the Metropolitan Police officers investigated for domestic abuse and sexual misconduct, but still working without restrictions. New figures show there are more than 100 of them, yet more scandal for the Met on the eve of a damning report into the force.
You know, we're just talking about the misogyny. There's racism, there's homophobia. It goes on and on and on. The behaviour in the police force is appalling and it needs to be stopped.
Also ahead, the moment boxer Amir was robbed of his £70,000 watch in Leighton. Spurs legend Jermaine Defoe tells me why big changes are needed in top-flight football. Plus, a hero's welcome, the London Cubbies, who rode 3,000 miles from Europe to Antigua. Good evening. Tomorrow, the Met Police will face the publication of one of the biggest reviews yet into the workings of the force. The Casey report is expected to say that Britain's biggest force is riddled with deep-seated racism, sexism and homophobia, with a failure to change. But even on the eve of that report, the scandals keep coming. Tonight, new Freedom of Information figures obtained by the Liberal Democrats reveal that more than 100 officers who are currently being investigated for sexual misconduct are still working as normal within the force without restrictions. With the latest, here's Rags Martel.
2 years ago, they protested. A vigil united against the police. Women who said enough is enough. Caught in the centre, Patsy Stevenson, who made headlines for more heavy-handedness by the Met.
It is sad. When I look back, I'm like, it's been 2 years and still we've not seen anything. And I don't know when we will. You know, we're just talking about the misogyny. There's racism, there's homophobia. It goes on and on and on. The behaviour in the police force is appalling and it needs to be stopped.
But the murder and rape of Sarah Everard by serving officer Wayne Couzens was just the start. Since then, serial rapists and racists have been caught working in the force.
Where's your trust right now?
My trust is at the bottom. It has been at the bottom for 2 years, because I thought if you were arrested, you had to have done something wrong, and I know that's not the case at all.
Today, new figures reveal the shocking numbers of rogue police still in the force. As of the 3rd of February, 548 Metropolitan officers were under investigation for allegations of domestic and sexual abuse. 144 are still working as normal. A further 236 have been placed on restricted duties.
When I was a police officer, the fundamentals were around policing by consent, and you have that consent by having trust placed in you by the public. I think it's very difficult for people to understand why that might be the case.
But tomorrow's report is the big one. The Met expected to be criticised for being racist, sexist and homophobic in an extensive review of its policing culture by Baroness Casey. Among the possible recommendations, Britain's largest police force could be broken up and made smaller.
I really believe that the Met Police has suffered from not just institutional racism and institutional sexism, but it's suffered from institutional arrogance. Because I think when it's too big, it's too much for one person as commissioner and a management board to really get a grip of. Because I think there's been a lack of grip.
Tomorrow, the Met Police's emergency sirens will be for the future of the force itself.
Rags, there will be those that will be asking exactly why are they still working on the force as normal?
Well, that's exactly what we asked the Met Police today. Disappointingly, no one was available to talk on camera today, but they did give us a statement which, again, disappointingly, doesn't quite answer that question. But this is what they say. We know we have much more to do, they said. We are working hard to improve so that women and girls feel safe and have confidence in our service to them. This must start with us. But to be fair, Mark Rowley, the new commissioner, who was only appointed at the end of last year, has already spoken out of the need to root out the bad apples. Those are his words. But tomorrow's report by Baroness Casey will have a lot to say. It's more than 300 pages long. And we understand even the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, will be criticised for his, quote, historic dysfunctional relationship with the force. So watch this space.
Indeed, we'll sure have more on that for you tomorrow. Thanks very much for that, Rags. Next tonight, the shocking moment. A gunman robs Amir Khan of his £70,000 watch in East London. A court's been shown the footage as it heard from the man who's accused of being involved in the plot to rob the boxer. Well, Anila Dami is at Snaresbrook Crown Court and joins us now. Anila, can you talk us through what was said?
Well, the court's been hearing from 24-year-old Ismail Mohammed from Enfield, who is accused of keeping track of boxing champion Amir Khan's movements while Mr Khan dined in the Sahara Grill restaurant in Leighton, and then allegedly relaying the information by phone to Ahmed Bana. Mr Bana's pleaded guilty to being the getaway driver in the armed robbery of Amir Khan last April. Today, the court examined CCTV, and Mr Mohammed claimed not to have mentioned Amir Khan's name more than once on phone records shown in court. The trial started last week, where a jury saw CCTV footage of the moment Amir Khan and his wife, Farian Makdoum, left the restaurant, walked towards a waiting car while two robbers got out of a silver Mercedes parked in front. A man jogs towards them, raises his arm to point a gun at the boxer, who then hands over his £70,000 rose gold diamond encrusted watch. The robbers then run back to the Mercedes, which drives off. Now, Khan told a jury that an armed robber told him, take off the watch. He described being really scared, thinking of his 3 children and his wife, Farial, who is said to have been screaming and crying.
And Anila, there have been further developments in this trial, haven't there?
Yes, there have. Ahmed Bana, the driver, admitted conspiracy to commit robbery and possession of an imitation firearm. Gunman Dante Campbell, who's 20, from Hornsey in North London, has pleaded guilty. And 25-year-old Nurul Amin from Haringey was in court, and he's decided not to give evidence. And the trial continues.
All right, Anila, thanks very much. The legal team for former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has handed over a defence dossier to the Privileges Committee to rebut allegations he lied to Parliament over the Partygate scandal. The Uxbridge and South Ruislip MP is due to face MPs at Westminster on Wednesday. It will be a critical session for Mr Johnson's future. If the committee finds he is in contempt of Parliament, he could be suspended. Thousands of city jobs are at risk at Credit Suisse after the historic sale to rival UBS over the weekend. The Swiss bank employs around 5,500 people in Canary Wharf. And vets from across the capital are warning dog owners to ensure their pets are vaccinated against parvovirus after a spike in animal deaths. The charity Blue Cross has seen 23 dogs rushed to their hospital in Victoria for emergency care. Now, it's a shocking fact that we've talked about many times on this programme. Black women are more likely to die in childbirth when compared to white women. It was the subject of a documentary that I did with ITV News London back in the summer of 2020. Back then, the stats showed black women were 5 times more likely. Now it's 4. So rather than the situation improve, it's worse. Well, to try and remedy that, for the first time, a conference was held in London to try to turn the tide on racial health disparities, as Helen Keenan reports.
Sharing their maternity stories, today has been the first time many of these women have felt heard.
One of the really traumatic parts of my birth was that I was actually denied pain relief for a really long time, like way into my birth. It feels now there's a validation for me that actually this is written about, this is a thing that does happen. I am an ethnic minority and it's happened to me.
They only met here today at what is thought to be the first black maternal conference.
Why do you think there are racial health disparities?
I think there's systematic racism, a lot of that is involved, and a lot of, well, it worked well for this person, you know, our white counterparts, but it might not do so for our black ones.
It's our right to be looked after properly as well as everybody else's right.
Researchers found that black women are almost 4 times as likely to die in pregnancy and childbirth than white women.
When we look at the figures, how do you feel when you see those? What are your concerns?
I'm saddened, really saddened by, I know it was initially 5 times, then 4 times more, now 3.7 times more. Imagine going into hospital, you and I go in together, you're a white lady, I'm a black lady, and I'm knowing, oh my gosh, I'm 4 times more likely to die. And that cannot be explained simply by a level of our educational or socio-economic. The studies show that if you strip that all away, it's just purely to do with the difference in race.
Sandra organised today's motherhood group event and co-chaired a year-long investigation into racial disparities in maternity care.
There's definitely systemic racism in healthcare services. I mean, there's no denying that. There are barriers put in place that don't necessarily allow black mothers to get culturally competent, safe and sensitive care. Why are we the most likely to have all of these disparities, challenges, poor outcomes?
The Department of Health say they're committed to making the NHS the safest place in the world to give birth for everyone and are striving to eliminate racism, health inequalities and bias across women's health through their Race Equality Task Force. These conferences will carry on because those here say there is a need to continue the conversation. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Still to come, the full weather forecast, plus Spurs legend Jermaine Defoe will be popping in to talk about his ambitions to change top-flight football. And we meet the London Cubbies, who got quite the reception when they completed an amazing journey to Antigua by boat. Members of the RMT union have voted to accept a pay offer from Network Rail, but planned strikes set to take place in the capital next week could still go ahead. Antoine Allen's over at King's Cross for us. Antoine, firstly, can you talk us through the terms of this deal?
Well, this particular deal is somewhat good news for commuters and obviously good news for the RMT members that have accepted the details of this particular deal, which are, well, a pay uplift of 14.4% for the lowest paid members and 9.2% for the highest paid. So it would mean over £4,000 more a year for the average earner, who are currently on £31,000 a year. Now today ITV News spoke to Mick Lynch from the RMT, who said that despite today's announcement, it doesn't rule out strikes in years to come.
This deal, the changes they want to make will be implemented through 2023, and by the time that's done, we will be into negotiations for the 24 deal. So I'm not ruling it out, I'm not ruling it in. We haven't even discussed that yet. It depends on Network Rail's attitude, what they think they can afford, what our members want, what their aspirations are. But we never take off the table our right to strike.
But why then could we still have strikes in the capital next week then?
Well, Charlene, that's the question on all of our viewers' lips. Anybody that was affected by the strikes on Thursday or Saturday, well, they'll still be affected. That's because of the RMT members in the 14 companies that were striking last week haven't been offered this particular deal, and that's what the government are saying. And when we spoke to the rail delivery group last week, they said they believe there'll be light at the end of the striking tunnel if this deal was put to the RMT members in a whole.
All right, Antoine, thanks very much. Well, if you want all of the detail regarding the RMT and strikes, you can find out which companies will be striking and when on our website. Just go to itv.com/London. The school in Lambeth is taking matters of pollution into its own hands after it was revealed that pupils there are being exposed to very high levels of a dangerous particle that can cause asthma, heart disease and lung cancer. Elm Green School is just 50 yards from the South Circular, and students have now been building their own pollution monitors and filter systems to try to help. Daniel Henry went for a look.
Take a look at what's going into our lungs.
So as you can see, it's very, very dirty, and we're breathing this in. I mean, look at that. That is not at all good.
Wow. These students know that it's more than just a dirty vent. London's dirty air has got to go somewhere.
That's why you guys built the boxes?
Yeah.
And it works?
Yeah, it works very well. As you can see, the monitor over there tells you how many there are, and it's close to zero.
Close to zero particles?
Yeah.
Because of the boxes?
Yeah.
The boxes they're talking about were created in class. They monitor pollution, they don't cost a lot, and they can be built quickly.
And this is the end result. I mean, how long did it take you? 45 minutes, maybe. 45 minutes?
Actually, maybe less, 20 minutes.
20?
I'm not sure. I wasn't telling you.
I think in all, it probably would be around that amount of time. I think we just had to stop to go through the steps, but it really was straightforward, really straightforward. I think the hardest part was not damaging the filters, actually.
Have you been surprised at how quickly the children have taken this on.
Yeah, I think learning a bit more about the area around them has really piqued their interest in finding some solutions. I think there is a real sense of pride amongst them that they've developed a solution for themselves and for their peers. And I think we were all very surprised at how simple and straightforward it was to make, which begs the question, like, why aren't we doing this more?
Considering that most of the pollution, has been caused by like the generations before us, the fact that we are being forced to provide the solution for the whole pollution thing is, I believe, unfair.
We must look at all the different types of pollution that we can find, whether in our homes, in our classrooms.
The prototypes aren't perfect, but the lessons learned here could transform the city one day. Daniel Henry, ITV News.
Issues about the climate continue on the ITV News at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Mary.
Coming up on tonight's programme, the climate time bomb is ticking. We've got a special report from Pakistan, which is still recovering from devastating floods, as the UN warns urgent action is required. The DUP confirms it will be voting against Rishi Sunak's new Brexit deal. Vladimir Putin meets with China's President Xi in a political boost for Russia. And Tesco makes a big change to its club card scheme. But what will it mean for customers' points? Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Now, last week, many questions were raised following the sacking of Patrick Vieira from Crystal Palace. He was then the Premier League's only black manager, and now we're back to zero. That despite the fact that 43% of Premier League players are black. Well, our guest tonight, another huge name in football, is hoping that he can make a difference. Beckton's Jermaine Defoe is one of England's greatest footballers, playing for Premiership sides across the UK and around the world. He's well known in the capital for his spell at Tottenham Hotspur, where he made over 350 appearances, scoring over 140 goals, including that famous 5 in one match against Wigan Athletic in 2009. He's also represented England 57 times, scoring 20 goals, and is one of the greatest all-time goal scorers for the Three Lions. Since retiring last year, he's moved on to the community game as a Spurs ambassador and academy coach, responsible for their under-18s with the hope of inspiring the next generation. And we're really pleased that you popped in, Jermaine. What's it like looking back at all those highlights?
Just love the goals. You see me smiling.
Yeah.
The goals and that. Yes, I mean, the years just go so quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got obviously great memories of what I achieved and proud, of course.
And of course, you retired last year.
Yeah.
And now you're at the academy.
Yeah.
And that's for a really good reason, isn't it? Because you want to kind of change the way that top flight football is being run at the moment.
Of course. I mean, for me, it was always the plan to finish playing and go into coaching. You know, I love football. Everyone knows that. You know, complete my badges. And the transition's been quite smooth, to be honest.
Okay.
Opportunity at Tottenham to coach in the academy. But I've always known that the lack of black managers. I mean, I think there's around 4% of black managers, and obviously Patrick's gone recently, so there's no black manager in the Premier League. And to be honest, even below that, I mean, when you look at the Championship and League One, I think it's, in terms of black managers, it's the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah.
So I do sort of like wonder where the opportunity is going to come from.
But why do you think this is happening? You know, when you look at a figure like 43% of players in the Premier League are black, but then when you get to the higher echelons of the organisation, you're barely seen. Why do you think that happens?
I don't know. I mean, it's a conversation that I've had with my family, with friends. I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago. And to be totally honest, I don't think there's much has changed. I don't think much has changed in terms of numbers. It's quite shocking, to be honest. When you actually think about it, it's quite upsetting to think there's only 4% of black managers. When I think about the players that sort of like paved the way for me to sort of like be where I'm at, in terms of like, I mean, names like John Barnes and the Les Ferdinands, the Ian Wrights, you know, the Andy Coles, Dwight Yorks, who's obviously, he went to Australia to manage. And since then, you know, I've had a conversation with Sol Campbell. Difficult for Sol to get back in. So I mean, it's been tough, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to sort of like get too disheartened. I still want to continue to do my coaching and hopefully one day get an opportunity. But also it's about highlighting that issue as well, because you've got a new podcast, haven't you? Yeah, I mean, doing this podcast has been brilliant because it's just having a conversation. Now I've just gone around, you know, interviewing managers that I've played under, you know, ex-players that I've played with, that's gone on to manage. I mentioned Sol there. I had a conversation with Sol, which was really interesting. And yeah, I mean, in terms of, you know, grassroots and academy football, there have been changes. But when you look higher up at first team level, the numbers are shocking, like I keep saying. So I do believe at some stage it has to change.
I mean, you're a great player. I mean, no one can argue with that. You know, your history shows that. And there've been so many other black players who've had incredible history. You've mentioned so many of them. But when you see that they haven't managed to become those big managers that we talk about, is there any part of you that thinks, you know what, I don't even think it's worth doing this?
Yeah. If I'm being totally honest, I think there has been times, even recently, to be honest, doing the podcast, obviously having a conversation. Because when I was playing, I was aware of the numbers. But since I've stopped playing, obviously I'm going into coaching, and that transition from player to coach and obviously become a manager is the ultimate goal. But I do sit there sometimes and think, you know, what is the point of doing this? Because, you know, I don't want to sort of like do all the badges, learn as much as I can from obviously the coaches at Tottenham that's, you know, coached for years. Put all the hard work in, but then, you know, once you've completed your badges, not really getting an opportunity. And I do think, you know, what's different with me? Why is my journey going to be different to the likes of Souls or the Les Ferdinands or the Ian Wrights?
Okay.
So, yeah, it is shocking, the numbers, and, you know, it's quite sad, you know, to even have the conversation.
Well, yeah, and is there part of you that's quite scared? I don't know, you may lose some love for the game if you do all of this and you still don't get the thing that you want and that you deserve.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, I think that's probably the main thing, because, I mean, people that know me, you know, I love football. I've loved football from the age of 2, from the time I could walk, really. And you do get to a point where, obviously, I'm older and wiser, and you do look at the situation and think, do you know what? That's the last thing I'd want, you know, just to fall out of love with this beautiful game, the game that's given me so much, not only me, but my family. I understand that I'm a role model, you know, kids look up to you, and it's just been an unbelievable journey. I've been blessed. But at the same time, you know, thinking about the transition and want to become a manager and want to get the opportunity that, you know, that others have got. But it's been difficult, of course, but at the same time, you have to be positive and hope that at some stage it will change.
I really hope so as well. I'm mates with Chris Hughton. I know how much it meant to him to be a manager in the Premier League. And of course, I'm not going to get into all the Conte stuff, but do you think managing Spurs is something that you might consider in the future?
Do you know what? I think if you ask any ex-Tottenham player, you know, obviously I'm good friends with Ledley King. He's still at the club in an ambassador role. I think if you speak to any ex-Tottenham player, especially if I was there for 9 years, you know, that of course, you'll never turn around and be like, no, I would love to manage the club.
Yeah.
It's a special club, so
I look forward to seeing you do that. Thank you so much, Jermaine. It's lovely to see you. OK, let's take a look at the weather now.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Hello there, good evening. It was the Equilux on Saturday, and now today it's the Equinox, so we're properly into spring, and we are sort of getting proper spring-like weather. We've got the jet stream pushing a little bit further south. In spite of that, it's going to be mild this week, but you notice all those low pressure systems nearby. That's where we're going to get plenty of showery weather in between what's set to be rather wet weather. Now, as far as tonight goes, rather grey and murky, a few more outbreaks of light patchy rain. Then towards the end of the night, the cold front's going to move through and bring us some more definite wet weather, and there could be some more moderate bursts on that. Temperature-wise, it's going to be a mild one, lows of 8 or 9 Celsius, a bit breezy as any of these fronts push through. It means that tomorrow morning, bit of a grey, dull, damp start, but it won't be too long before we start to see something a touch brighter with a few sunny spells. But notice what happens. We're going to see the sunny spells helping to trigger more in the way of showers. 1 or 2 of those could turn out to be rather sharp. Hopefully, none of them will last too long, because there is going to be quite a noticeable breeze through tomorrow. It's still coming in from a mild direction, so we're looking at highs of 16 Celsius, so 2 or 3 degrees up on today. As far as what happens next, well, it's a repeat performance really. We've got another band of rain pushing through Tuesday into Wednesday. This one's set to lurk a bit longer on Wednesday morning, so a bit of a wet start, but hopefully we'll start to see something a little bit drier and brighter into the afternoon. And with that, we could see temperatures again at around 16 Celsius. Afraid to say Thursday is set to be a rather showery and breezy day, but like I say, it's going to be mild for much of the week.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Finally tonight, the incredible story of the black cab drivers who swapped the streets of London for a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. Darren Parr, Bob Barber and Stuart Lockhart have just completed a challenge of a lifetime after rowing from Lanzarote to Antigua in a 3,200-mile journey to raise money for charity. And they got quite the welcome in the Caribbean, as Kath O'Patter reports.
It was the most craziest thing I've ever done, and the most mental thing I've ever done, and the most scariest thing I've ever done, the most exhilarating thing I've ever done.
3 London cabbies rowing into the coast of Antigua. Now that's not something you see every day. A hero's welcome after 60 days in the Atlantic. Bob, Darren and Stuart spent nearly 2 months riding the ocean waves. Now they're back on land and behind the wheel. Here's how they fared going up against one of nature's toughest challenges.
You are moving 24/7. I've still got calluses on my hands here. That is just from sitting in the boat in a little cabin, just being like, and everything you do becomes a bit of a problem, becomes more of an effort. Drinking, everything, brushing your teeth and sleeping is really, it's a non-entity. You really don't sleep, your body just shuts down.
Body shutting down, no sleeping. It's a wonder how these two have managed to stay friends.
As I say, just the slightest little thing, whether someone comes and picks a food that you want to eat, you know, and you've got to then dig in to find another one, that's going to wind you up. But you've got to keep a lid on it. There's 3 of us on a little 29-foot boat, you know. There ain't far to go to can't strangle one of them, so you really have got to keep a lid on it.
We rode, not rowed. Yeah, no, we got on quite well because we're taxi drivers. We knew each other because we'd climbed Kilimanjaro in February previous, so we knew each other and we did get along quite well.
So, still alive and still best of chums. Wherever these cabbies drive to for their next stop, it's bound to be another adventure. Kath O'Patter, ITV News.
Oh, well done, lads. OK, that's it from us. We're back with the latest start at ITV News at 10. Coming up, it's Mary with the ITV Evening News. But for me and the rest of the London team, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.